And then our trucks were loaded into the what do you call the bottom of the boat, and in the hold, and we were on the beach on the decks of the ship, waiting to sail down the Thames, round by Dover and into the Channel, and then we were. This was about the 2nd of June, and we didn't land until the 7th of June, and we went up the beach. Sword Beach, and more or less saw action right away, and we had to be very careful going up the beach because the German mines were still on the beach, and that was got Acton mining on the, and then we had to dig in overnight because our heavy mortars had to be in a trench because the bombs that we were firing had to be, you know, more or less safety. What else can we say now? I mean,
Uncle Ben did the distance.
Uncle Ben was a corporal in charge of the platoon, and he set up the mortars, and we put the bombs down the barrels of the mortars, and then they were fired up to about 3 miles away. Now what?
I can't remember.
Can you quote me?
Yeah, and then you went up. Then you obviously travelled to Holland, didn't you? On the for that 6 months, what happened?
Oh no, we were in Normandy for a long time, and we went through Camp, Rouen, into Belgium, Holland, and then was wounded at this school that we knocked the Germans out of in the morning, and we sheltered in the same school that night, and the shells came through the roof of the school, and we were all wounded. Brother Ben had been in the army a long time with me, and when I was called up, he being a younger brother, he claimed me, and I joined him in the Royal Engineers, and then from then on we went into the 1st 7th Middlesex, and then joined the 51st Highland Division.
And he was based in Kent, wasn't he? You said to me.
Pardon?
He was based down in Kent.
He was, yeah. Before that, he was based in Kent most of the time, in the Royal West Kents. But when I joined him, we went into the Royal Artillery.
Yeah, why did you? Because he claimed him. That's why. Because Uncle Ben claimed.
He claimed me because I was younger than him.
Quite a few years younger than him, weren't you?
Yes.
And then you went all over the country, didn't you? You were telling me to train. You trained before you went over.
Yeah, where did we?
You said you went to Colchester, Isle of Wight.
Yeah. We're down near Bognor Regis, and then Colchester, and then various places down in southern England, and then before we went to France, we were training in Cambridgeshire. In what was the name of that forest? Can't think of the name of the forest. We've trained in there. I know we were under canvas, and the 2 or 3 days before we went to the docks in London docks, we were in barbed wire outside the Waltham Lane Green Man, the pub, and we weren't allowed to go and have a drink because we ran behind barbed wire in case we scooped off.
Did you say? Yeah. Did you say to Uncle Ben, oh, you know, this might be the end, or not?
No, I didn't. He said, well, this is it, we're going ashore and that's it. And then the next thing we were in the back of the trucks, went up the beach in the back of the truck, and I never even got my feet wet.
And but you were with him all the time, all that while, on the same truck?
I was in the same platoon as him.
But all the time, travelling all the
while? The driver was driving the truck. As a corporal, he sat next to him, and all the rest of the platoon were in the back of the truck as we went up the beach.
So he was in charge?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then we went up the beach. The Germans were being driven away, and we just dug in slit trenches and dug the big mortar trench in.
Didn't you see that there were lots of bodies on the beach?
Yeah, bodies on the beach, Germans and they never had time to pick them up. And one of our so-called friends in the back of the truck said, "Oh look, they've got their they're going black already because they've been dead overnight." It was a camouflage. I said, "Don't be silly, mate." I said, "That's camouflage."
And then they travelled, as you travelled up there, you said the paratroopers had been dropped in, hadn't they, to clear a lot of the way before you got there?
That's right, yes. And then about 2 or 3 days after that, we went over, what was the bridge called? There's the posh bridge that oh dear, what's the name of the bridge? I can't think of the name of the bridge. Have you stopped it?
So, did anybody ever ask you or Uncle Ben why you were together?
Lots of people asked why we were together, because we might get killed together. But being the elder brother, he claimed me, because I was younger.
And took you with him?
Yeah.
And never any thought of the fact that you would both be killed at the same time?
I think we must have had our fingers crossed.
Okay.
The same school, we drove the Germans out in the morning, and because that was snowing heavily, we sheltered in the school at night. That's a daft thing to do really, because the Germans had it in their range, because they were only in there themselves the same morning.
And they surrounded you, didn't they?
And we drove them out, and then went in the same school ourselves, and of course they reversed the thing and started blasting us with, it's got self-propelled in there, but that's 88mm shells they shelled us with, from tanks, from the big Tiger tanks.
And you said it was dark, very
yeah,
dark.
Black as ink and snowing.
Were you frightened?
I'll say I was.
Yeah.
I won't say I wasn't, I was dead scared.
And were you beside Uncle
Ben? And I was laying
on
trying to get some sleep on the floor of the school when a shell came over and came right through the roof of the school and then did all the damage. Wounded us, well, a lot of us anyway.
And obviously killed a lot more.
And the young fella behind me, who was our lorry driver, was screaming because he'd been hit in the head.
Yeah.
And then I found that I was in a lot of pain all down this left-hand side, and Captain Borthwick came in and said, "Oh, you've got to go to hospital," and then dragged me out and put me in the back of the truck, and away we went.
And then he went back for Uncle Ben.
Then he went back for Uncle Ben, and I found out when I was in the hospital that Captain Borthwick himself had been killed right after us two, after he'd got us two out.
And then you travelled back to...
But I came back to UK within 2 days, came back to Swindon.
Flown?
Flew in a Dakota, all stretcher cases, up the English Channel to Swindon, and then after I'd been in Swindon and had some treatment, I went to Derbyshire Royal Infirmary and was in there for a long, long time.
And Uncle Ben, you said...
But Uncle Ben never came back because he got caught diphtheria and they kept him in France.
And then he came back here...
And then he...
Early 1945, you reckon, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't reckon he came back to the UK till 1945, and we got wounded in November 44.
Go.
This is my brother Ben in uniform, but I don't think this photograph was taken until 1945 because he's got the wounded stripe on his arm, and he never came back to the UK until 1945.
And there's not a picture of you.
And I'm sorry that I haven't got a picture of myself in uniform. But this is the Captain Borthwick, who dragged us out when we were in Leveroy and got my brother out and then was killed himself.
And you owe your life to him?
Pardon?
You owe your life to him?
Yes, I do owe my life to him and my brother. Well, my brother don't because he passed away 2 years ago.
Yeah, but he did get him out.
Oh, he got him out, oh yes.